Hi, so let's start modeling our kitchen. So what we have here is a simple plan I've drawn up in 3D Max. It's not super accurate or anything like that. It's just the basic positioning and general idea of the kitchen cabinets. Okay, so here's the top view. You can see the basic lines here. And there's also a kitchen island in the center of the room. And it's drawn out here. Just some simple cabinets. Alright, to get started, let's make a simple element first. Let's start with this door here. Okay, so I'm gonna make sure I'm on a different layer than my plans. And start with the rectangle. Turn on snap by pressing the S key. Make sure it's set to 2.5. Okay, enable vertex mode. And just snap to these points. Alright, I'm gonna freeze the flange. And now I'm gonna draw my profile line here. So the profile should be something like this. It's a large straight section, maybe a small rounded one. Okay, another flat, and maybe go back up slightly, like this. Very simple profile. Okay, let's fill it this vertex here. Make it nice and rounded. Like this. And slightly bevel these front corners. Okay, use the chamfer tool. Okay, looks good. Right now let's select our rectangle and add a bevel profile modifier. Click the bevel pick profile button and pick this profile here. So right now it's rotated in the wrong direction, so press 1 and rotate it 180 degrees. Okay, let's look closer. Looks very nice. And that's the basic door for our kitchen cabinets. Okay, so you need to create another profile for the drawers. It's a bit more simple without the center part here and slightly closer to the edge. Let's unfreeze all. Okay, I'm gonna hide the plants. I'm gonna make a copy of this profile. Okay. And let's move it over here and adjust it. And let's get rid of these central vertices. Okay, seems about right. And let's use the bevel profile again. And rotate like this. Okay, let's move the profiles out of the way. Actually, let's create a new layer just for the profiles. Okay, and let's freeze it. Right, back to our 3D layer. And the drawer element is ready. Alright, and there's also one more style of door. It's some door with glass inside. It's pretty similar to this lower door here, but instead of the central part it has some glass. Okay, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add edit poly modifier, adjust the size manually, and delete the central polygons. Okay, now we have some holes here that need to be fixed. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this border element, I'm gonna shift and move it upwards like this. Okay, now select both borders and bridge them together. So that should close the gap. Looks good. And we can make sure the back is flat by selecting these vertices and scaling them down to 0 on the y-axis. Alright. And now let's create a glass panel inside. Just snap to the corners and create a box. And set the thickness to something like 0.5 centimeters. Okay. Right. So looks like that's about it for our panel types. Except this large door here. Okay, let's finish this one first. So yes, as you can see, the glass is split into 4 pieces. And I'm gonna simply create a couple of lines. And give them a radial profile. Okay, maybe something a bit less than 1 centimeter, maybe 8 mil. Okay, I think this looks good. Maybe let's drag this down so they go inside the frame, so there are no gaps. Right, and I'm gonna fix the glass as well. Looks like it snapped to the wrong vertices, so there's a slight gap here. And I think that's fine. Okay, so now before we duplicate these panels, we should assign them correct mapping coordinates. Okay, so to do that, first we need to set up our temporary material so we can see the texture. I'm going to create a new material. I'm going to name it wood. Okay, and I'm going to create another material and name it glass. Okay, so for glass, let's leave it. Okay, simple blue diffuse color so you can see the items well in the viewport. Right, and looks like we need another material for these metal parts here, and I'm gonna name it brass. Okay, so I'm just assigning these material placeholders, and I'm not setting them up to their final look. I'm just assigning them so I don't have to go around my scene later on and assign them to each object separately. Okay, so they're already there. Right, so let's fix the mapping coordinates. Okay, so first let's assign a diffuse map to our wood material. I'm gonna use a simple wood texture here. Maybe we will work a bit more on it later. Okay, and let's go over these pieces step by step. So right now the texture doesn't look correct. Let's add edit poly modifier. Okay, so the way this panel is framed is that there are two vertical pieces on the side. These are called stiles. And there are two connecting horizontal pieces between them, which are called the rails, and a flat panel between all of that. This style is used all the time for furniture, and it's used to prevent the wood warping from the humidity. So we're gonna try to simulate that effect. But first we need to cut in some lines with slice plane tool. Okay, so go down to slice plane, enable it, rotate like this. We just want to separate these pieces here. Okay, in one slice. Go to the other side. And slice again, right? And now we can select some of our polygons. Let's start with the outer ones. Okay. So I think this will be good enough. Actually, the center part will have the same grain direction, so I'm going to start with these inner polys first. Okay, so these go horizontally. Let's add a UVW map modifier. Set it to box. Let's try 120 y by 120. So the size looks about right, maybe slightly larger. All right. Let's add another modifier. Okay, first let's check from the top, looks good. Now let's add another edit poly modifier. Select your polys, press Ctrl I to invert their selection, and add another UVW map. Right, so 140 by 140, and let's change the alignment to make the wood grain vertical like this. Okay, it looks like it's fine on the front, but from the side it's going horizontally. So press 1 and just rotate the UV mapping like this, 90 degrees. Perfect. Right. And since the panel and the outer frame is from separate pieces, I'm gonna add different mapping for my panel, just so it doesn't look like it's cut from the single piece. And another UVW map. Okay, actually let's use box. Maybe try slightly different size, so it's not all the same. And maybe let's move it around a bit. Great. So that's a nicely textured door. Let's unhide all. Okay, so for the drawers, there's actually no need to do the same thing. They would probably be made like this. They would probably be made from a single piece. So let's add a box map. And make it horizontal. Alright, that's good. And finally, let's fix this piece here. Okay. Let's cut in the vertical seams like we did for the lower door. And basically position them in the same place. Okay, it doesn't need to be perfect. And these parts should have vertical grain, and the horizontal ones should have horizontal grain. So let's do that with UVW map. Alright, add another edit poly, press Ctrl I, and use another UVW map. And this one looks fine. Okay, so it looks pretty much like it would look in real world. All right. Okay, so let's add another edit poly modifier just above the bevel profile. Okay, so first I'm gonna copy the whole thing over to the right side. Okay, make sure the glass is selected as well. And copy it over here. Right, as you can see, the size is a bit different. And now, since we have this modifier below all the mapping, you can just select some sub-objects, move them. Right, so there's a little problem here because we use the slice plane. So looks like this will not work as I expected it to. So we're going to delete this modifier and use our original edit poly. As long as we don't mess up our poly selection or add some new geometry, the texture mapping should remain correct, even though we changed dimensions quite a bit. As you can see, I'm dragging it around. But the textures look alright. Okay, make sure you change back to these polys here. Alright. So looks good. Let's make some adjustments to these brass parts. Just move and scale the elements. You can press Shift to make some copies while moving. And move this one down. Right, and finally let's fix the glass panel size. And again, precision doesn't matter as long as it goes into the frame and there are no gaps. Okay, so the textures are looking good. So that's fine. Right, I'm going to show you the same thing over here. If I copy this panel to the right, okay, let's position it correctly and go down to my first original Edit Poly modifier. I can move the vertices around without messing up my textures. Okay, as you can see, works perfectly. And Shift plus Move to make a copy down. And to make it a bit more realistic, you can select some of your UV mapping modifiers and move them around to get a different grain pattern. Okay, you should probably do this for all the different doors. Right, looks good. Basically, that's the whole process for creating these doors. Okay, so since this one doesn't have any Edit Poly modifiers at all, you're gonna want to add an Edit Poly about the bevel profile. And just below the UVW map. This way your mapping will not be messed up. You can select the mapping modifier and move it around like this to make it a bit different. Okay, now copy down. And move the mapping around. Again. And one more. Right. So now each of these elements has different texture coordinates, but they are all still correctly positioned. And proceed to create the rest of the objects using the same techniques.